and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Heather Douglas, and I am the Director of Workforce Marketing and Communications for the Harold Alfond Center. Today's session is focused on a big change that I hope is music to everyone's ears, and that is that we are moving to one registration system, which will be within Upskill Maine, to help make data entry faster, easier, and more consistent for you and your teams. This session is being recorded, and we will share out the recording and all related assets with you later this afternoon. So you will have everything that you need to review or pass along to your colleagues. Josh, if you could go to the next slide.
Right.
For our agenda today, we are going to talk about the key changes coming through Upskill Maine for December 1st. We'll review W-9s and required items that you can now add directly to your account on your own. You'll see the new application and registration demo. That includes how you will upload your employees within the system. We will be pausing for questions along the way, so please feel free to put those in chat, or you can ask them live when we pause. We'll then cover sendbacks and amendments, and then finally closeouts. If you did submit a question when you registered, if we do not cover that throughout the presentation, then we will cover that at the end. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Josh Howe, our Deputy Executive Director for Workforce Training and Remote Work, to walk through these changes. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you for joining us. We're glad you're here. We're really excited about this upgrade because the intent is that it's going to simplify the process. And from a high level, what it's going to do is rather than using the two systems, which you've been used to, it's going to bring the registrations right into the one system. So you'll do everything within that one system. And we'll talk about timeline here at the end. So I want to walk you through the demo. I'm going to kind of go fairly quickly because not talking about all of the application steps and fields, but just touch on some of the key points. But we will go all the way through both application and closeout and then highlight a lot of the new features that are going to make things a little bit easier for you. So right now, what you're seeing is that home screen when you've logged into Upskill Maine and you've got your compact member funding request. So one of the first places is you'll see a change is you've got a participants place in the top right when you open that menu. And that is where you will see all of your employees and all the participants for your organization if you're an organizational admin. And the beauty is you're able to update the individual's records yourself. With the old system, you would have to have a link sent that was only good for 24 hours. This system will send them a link, but if they don't do that, that link doesn't expire. They can do that as long as it's done before closure, and then you're also able to do that to update their profiles. Wanted to highlight in organizational management is a place where you can, it already exists in the system that you're seeing, where you can add your organizational admins and other contacts, so people who can create funding requests for your organization. And at the bottom now, you're also able to add files. So this is where your W-9 is going to show up, and you can also upload that. It's really critical is if you don't have a W-9 in there, then we're not able to pay you. So making sure that not only is there a W-9 there, but that it's up to date. So if there is a change in your address or other statuses, that's a great place to upload it. You can also get in touch with your workforce development coordinator, who we have a number of them here on this call, and we'll be being sure to share that information with you. So you're able to add to files just by selecting add files, and then you're able to actually review the information just by clicking on the link there if you want to see what you had. So I have a demonstration W-9 that I had created. So I'm going to go to your compact member funding request because that's the key part of this. And I've created 3 funding requests so that we move quickly. You're not watching me do data entry as we go. So we've got one that's currently in draft status. So I want to edit that application. And so in this case, I'm going to select it. And you've got your training information screen. This is where you're looking at all of entering the information on the program that you wish to have funding for. Uh, the start and end dates. Again, please submit your request as far in advance before the training as you're able to. That really helps us do the approval process and provide you time to make corrections before that training starts if there are any questions for it. An area where we do see a few challenges is a question on whether it's a flat rate training or not. And a flat rate training is one where, say, you're bringing in a trainer and it's $5,000 regardless of how many people you put in the room. And we take those costs and so we divide them amongst your participants. If you're paying on a per person basis, then it's not a flat rate training. So we end up having some questions on that, especially when a compact member does an amendment and we will adjust the allocations for all the individuals, but their reimbursement doesn't change. And so that ends up raising a few questions. So on a flat rate training, if you add more participants, everybody's allocation is slightly smaller. And if you end up coming back to us and saying we had 10 people who didn't show up, everybody's allocations go up by a wee bit, assuming that they still have available funds for that year. When you have the description is another place that's really important to make sure that you're providing a really quality description because this becomes part of that training record for those individuals. We really recommend using, if you have a training vendor you're working with, they will often have a course description. That is excellent. We want to see things. What is the training going to cover? What are the expected outcomes for that training? And that's really helpful as well. So the next step is putting in your training provider. This one is usually fairly straightforward. It's either an internal training where you're training your own staff, which is what I've selected right now, a Maine community college where so one of our campuses is offering that training and you're purchasing the training through one of our campuses. So you'd select that and then and then another training vendor. And that is the myriad of third-party vendors that we have around both the state and the country. One piece we do see on this is if you are providing that training internally, you shouldn't select other training vendor and then put yourselves in. Some of our compact members are both compact members as well as training providers. They provide training to other organizations as well as internally. So if you're training your own staff, that's always going to be an internal training. So. And this next screen is the participants, and this is where the major change is occurring. And so we have now we'll have two options, much like the Lumen system that you're currently using. You can create a what we call a slim profile for people with just the minimum required fields for their to be able to upload into the system, and that's first name, last name, job title, email address, and now date of birth is always also going to be required. And so we have these two templates. We have the slim profile template that provides just those short fields, just that short list. And then we have a full profile template. So you're able to actually upload all of the data that's necessary for individuals to have a full profile, which is necessary before you're closing out. Uh, so I've uploaded a full profile template here for this particular case, and it has all of the different fields. And I'll actually open the one that I filled out so you can see. And the big thing with this template is it's really important that you use the template as it's provided, that we're not able to use PDF formats, CSV, numbers, or Open Office or any of those types of pieces because the system is designed to read off this particular template. So you'll notice here, I've got a couple of individuals that I don't have all the fields filled out. That's okay. As long as it has the minimum required fields, those individuals will come in and they won't have uh, it'll just say that they don't have a full profile. If you have all of the fields, then they're able to go straight in with a full profile already available. These fields at the end are drop-down fields, so you're not able to copy and paste into those fields. So they are necessary that you select from one of the available options that is here. Uh, Once you've uploaded it, it takes a moment. You may have to kind of go off the screen and then come back, but you will see your list of participants down below. This is a way you can ensure that everybody is uploaded and been recognized by the system, and that it'll also tell you whether they have a full profile entered or not. It'll also show you whether they have any previous funding. And so you may know right up front when you've uploaded it that one of your individuals doesn't actually have any available funding left. I see a question in the chat. I'm not able to keep up with all the chat, but I see a question about the Social Security numbers. Social Security numbers are optional fields, so you do not need to enter Social Security numbers. Uh, that may differ in future for some programs. But at the moment, that is still an optional field. So in this case, when we uploaded it, we have two people with full profiles and two people not. Um, and I will cover how we're going to update to a full profile later on. And then the last step is the grant details, and I will talk about what are all of the optional fields. So you've got the attestation on this screen where you complete the attestation that you're going to be responsible for any of the funding that the grant doesn't cover. Your arrangement is between you and the vendor, and then select submit. The confirmation screen will tell you uh, a number of pieces, kind of what those next steps are. That the individuals are required to have full participant information before we're able to close that request out. Additional information may be required, so we may end up sending that request back if there is a question on it. That you're able to file an amendment. So an amendment is really just a modification. So we can go in here in a second, and I'll show you how to do an amendment. And then you will receive an email address for any notification. So one important piece is get in touch with your workforce development coordinators. If you have a staff member leave, so the person who submits the funding request is marked as the application contact. Communications go to that person. So if we end up, if there is a challenge with it and that person's already gone, same with the closure notifications. Those go to the application contact. So if there has been a staffing change and that person's either no longer with your organization or no longer responsible for it, it's really important to let us know so that we can make sure that the right people are getting the communications. So I'm going to go back to my funding requests and talk to you quickly about an amendment. So amendments are modifications to any of your funding requests. You don't need to amend anything that's in draft status. That's fully editable. So it's only if after you've submitted the application or it's been approved. And you go to the drop-down arrow and select amendment request. The amendment request is real short. It's really just this screen. And what this does is it'll bring forward the existing information, the title of your class, the start and the end date, and the participants that were approved for that training. If your training dates change, then you can put in the new training dates. If the costs have changed, which sometimes happens, the organizations either receive a grant or the costs are higher than they anticipated, so they can put that in the comment section if there's other information we may need. You can also request additional participants or remove participants from the class. So you can either say remove participant or request an additional participant and enter their information. This goes to our registration team who can then approve it or make modifications to your funding request. So, and I want to just stop there for a second and see if there are any major questions that you can't wait until the end. How do they update the profile? Um,
Josh, could you show what those optional fields are versus the mandatory fields?
Sure. So I'm going to pull up. So I've gone into the participant area. I've searched for a participant, and then I'm going to edit her profile. When you go to the profile, any field that's not marked optional is a required field. Uh, the one caveat to that is Social Security number has not been marked optional yet. That will be corrected by the time we go live. So what you're looking at, so if you're looking in the system now, you won't see these changes. They are not going to be implemented until the 30th. So it'll be available on December 1st for you folks. So contact information, we do need an email and a phone number and a primary address. Demographic information. A secondary address is an optional field, and then their education information. The other piece that's part of this enhancement is you'll now be able to see what requests that participant has done. So if you want to get a training record for that individual, you'll be able to see where they've requested it, and that gives you a reference. So you're able to open up those requests and see whether they completed that course or not. Individual learners can also reach out to us, and we can provide them with their student record.
Right, and another question in the chat, Josh, if an organization submits a full profile, can a participant log into that later?
Yes. So the participant will need to make an account because putting their email address in, it will create an account an account for them if they don't already have one, but it doesn't set up their password. So they will need to go and create that password and set up their account. But then when they log in, yes, uh, they are able to update their own profile. What I should have highlighted, thank you for asking the question, is on that participant upload screen, they will actually receive an email invitation if they don't already have an account and they don't have a full profile. They'll receive an email when that's done, when that application is submitted, so that they do go in and complete out that profile. So I want to talk about closeouts. And so to do a closeout, we're opening up. If there is a time where you're saying, oh, we're not going to run this training, you are able to withdraw your application. So that down menu really gives you your different options for that application. We can withdraw the application, we can make an amendment. Because the training dates for this training have passed, we're able to do the closeout. Um, so in the closeout information, again, we've tried to simplify that process and really provide you the information you needed. So what's the training? What are the dates? And who are your participants? Rather than having your lumens where your full profiles and then this system, it brings it all on to this one system, and you can see whether all of your participants have a full profile entered or not. And then your participant results. So that hasn't changed. The participant result piece is done the same as it was previously. You have 45 days from the end date of the training to complete the closeout. That's really critical. The system is going to start auto canceling funding requests on the 46 days based on the end date of that training. So it's really imperative that we get closeouts in as soon as possible. You will receive reminders. So we send out reminders at 45 days, 20 days, and 5 days. And that's, like I said before, that's right. It's really important that we have the correct contact person on funding requests to make sure that people receive that information. You'll notice the submit button isn't available right now. And that's because the information's not correct. I don't have complete information here. Uh, I will have to fill out, and I'm going to enter the closeout information for that participant. And this is one of the pieces that we're kind of excited about, is even if I do all of the closeout information for it, it's still not allowing me to close out. because one of my participants doesn't have a full profile. So this will hopefully reduce the amount of sendbacks that some of our compact members have received because they disconnect between the two systems. Now you're able to see the information here. And now I did pulled up before Edith Bunker's profile. And if you had noticed, Edith didn't have her, I think she didn't have all of her information complete. So her race was missing and her ethnicity was missing. And when I hit submit and go back to that closeout, it still says no, and now they all say yes. Because I opened it in a different tab. I did need to refresh this screen. And now the submit button is available. Um, there will be a reminder message here to explain it. So in case you don't forget, or you don't remember that all profiles need to be completed and all participant results need to be entered. When a Maine Community College System campus is the training provider, you will not have to do this process. That's the responsibility of our campus providers. They'll do the data collection and then do the closeout for you. So that piece right now, I believe it still shows up for you. And so that's being changed. So then it'll automatically flag for our registration teams and our campuses to do that closeout. And you won't have to see that. You will still be able to see those funding requests. The piece when you're looking at funding requests, you really have three options. So one is the funding request requiring your action. So that's anything with closeout and anything in draft. But then you have all of your active compact member funding requests. So it may be active, and that's where the ones that are the campus is responsible for closing, it's still active because it hasn't been paid and closed out. And then you have your inactive ones. So you're able to then see the two. So your active list includes everything that you both have need to do something with, as well as other ones that are somewhere else in the process and may not be needed. So this is one that's a campus vendor, and it automatically moved to MCCS final review because you don't need to take an action on that. So I did see one of the questions in the chat, which was, is this going to be for all of it's going to replace the Lumen system? The answer is yes, eventually. So for right now, this process is going to impact only applications submitted after December 1st. So anything that you've submitted up to this point that's still open is going to be required to be closed out in Lumens and Upskill as we've done before. But after December 1st going forward, we are exploring how can we speed up that timeline and move it all into this upskill system, but I don't have a good answer for you at that point. Uh, Another thing I wanted to highlight is on the bottom of every screen, there's the contact us and the Alphon training email address. The contact us does open up a list of all of our workforce development coordinators, their phone numbers, and their email. So you're able to get in touch with the coordinators for your region. We have people who cover every county in the state, and they're able to assist you with any application questions or chasing down if there's a question on a funding request. You're not sure what that status means, or it seems to be lost in the system. So I'm going to pause for a moment for questions, but there.
Our coordinators are in chat, have been doing a great job answering questions to individuals, but just for everybody's purpose, can you go over the participant result options, especially around the differences between did not attend and withdraw?
That's a great question. I was supposed to cover that. So your options are completed. So when somebody's been successfully completed the class, then obviously then they've completed. If they didn't attend, so they didn't go to the training at all, That is one of the unique ones where they actually will, we don't provide reimbursement when an individual doesn't show up and participate in the program at all. So when somebody doesn't attend, then we remove the funding for that and remove the allocation that doesn't go against their annual allocation. So they receive that allowance back. If somebody started the program and then didn't complete it, it didn't follow through to the end, that's a withdrawal. So, but if they never started, so did not attend is didn't go at all. Withdraw is started but didn't complete. And then failing is they went through the entire course but weren't successful in achieving the final exam or whatever that conclusion was, and how they measured it. So.
And Kaylin asked, is there a more concise way to add participants to new trainings after they've already been added to Upskill? Or do they need to be re-added each time they attend a training?
So no, well, you need to, so let's find a draft one. So when we do have the ability for you to do a search, and so I'm going to have to do a quick training request here so that we can get there. One, one, one. Please don't do this and put in fake data. I want to move to your participant screen to show you the process. So individuals that you have submitted to their before do remain part and connected to your organization. And so you are able to select those from a list. You don't have to do that data collection and upload. That is the other option for when you're adding individuals to a funding request. When you can select the add participant instead of the add files, you can say add participant. There's the two options here is you can add someone fresh. So if you have only one person and they're new to your organization, never done it, rather than doing an upload, you can just enter their information here. Again, it has all of the available options. As long as they have the minimum requirements, you're able to submit them that way. You can also search, and this will give you a search of only those individuals who are already associated with your organization. Um, so much like when I was under the participants tab, I can see just those participants. I can select one, say select, and then submit. And if they have a full profile, it'll show up when that screen closes. Okay. And so this individual already has $500 of previous funding usage for other applications, and that we're requesting 50 cents for this funding request, and they have a full profile already. So
Great. And similar to the last question, do full profiles need to be uploaded each time that there's a training? I think you said no, that they are discoverable. So if what would folks do if they were submitting a new request and knew that individuals were already in the system, Josh?
yeah, they can either select them from here, but if you're using the upload, you're going to have the minimum requirements. So that would still need first name, last name, job title, email, and date of birth. So as like I said, on the full template profile, you are able to just fill in those minimum fields. You don't need to fill out what we call the 19 points of light. You are able to just add those pieces up through date of birth. And that'll allow that person to be recognized by the system and matched to the existing system. It's really important that your participants have an email that's unique to them. So we're not able to have two individuals sharing an email address, which I know is sometimes the case, or some individuals don't have email addresses. And that's become a challenge for some individuals. We do need a unique email address because once they've completed that training, we do a completion survey of your participants, and then we do a follow-up survey from about 3 to 6 months afterwards. Uh, the other thing that we ask is to not make up email addresses, or put in faux email addresses. Try to always use the same email address for people, because if we either get a fake email address or a different one, that the system starts to believe that those are two different people. It treats them as unique individuals. And then we can run into a situation where an individual has an over award. It also impacts their ability to find their training record. So
If someone has already entered classes for December, will they need to use lumens to enter those, or would they transfer to upskill?
if they've submitted the funding request prior to December 1st, then they'll need to use the Lumen system to close that out. If the request is submitted after December 1st, they'll need to, they can close it just within the Upskill system.
Perfect. There was a question about when folks will receive this recording. That will be this afternoon. There's a question on the homepage URL for Upskill Maine. We'll make sure to include that as well, but it is in the chat.
Mhm.
Will the registration form be updated to include a veteran response for the registrant?
Yes, the full profile does have veteran, and it does also, same with the data entry screen, does collect veteran status. Yep.
Okay. If a course is on demand, and can be started at any time, what should the start and end dates be?
That's up to you. So if, as long as the funding request is before that start date, the end date really dictates when you're able to close that out. So you're not able to close out a funding request until that end date has been reached. If you put it, if say it's, the system that you're purchasing the on-demand course from gives you 6 months to do it, and you put a 6 month end date, and then you discover they finished it in the first month, you can do an amendment request and move that end date. It'd be great to put in a note in there and just say it was an on-demand course. Our learners already completed it, and that allows us, will then allow you to be able to complete that closeout and receive your payment earlier.
And I'm going to combine a few here, but can you go over what the funding maximums are for an individual, a
Mhm.
company, and when those reset?
So the funding maximum per calendar year for an individual is $1,200. And for an organization, it's $250,000 per calendar year. And so that will reset on January 1. Uh,
Should individuals, when they're filling out, or when people are filling out email addresses for individuals, should they be using work email or personal email
I
addresses?
know a lot of organizations use their business email address. One of the challenges with that is that individual goes somewhere else. So we like to have the personal email addresses, but it's really up to the individual and the organization. Not everybody's comfortable sharing that personal email address and don't want that blend between their work and their home. So yeah.
If there is a request in draft format and they don't submit until after December 1st, can they close that out in upskill?
Yes. As long as it's so as you're going to have to make sure that you're using the new templates. So if it's in draft format and it's using the old template, if your participants may not upload properly. And you also want to make sure that it's still submitted before the start date of that program. So yeah.
Is there a difference in process for including a new hire who, in a training, who may have received MWDC allocation and reimbursement of funds at a previous job?
There shouldn't be. It would be good to know if they previously have, so we can try to make sure that that's a single profile, that they have access to their record. But there isn't a different process for that. So.
Scrolling down a little bit, if a learner's email exists in the system under another employer, it currently kicks back as a potential duplicate. Will this system upgrade still do that? And what will they do in that instance?
Can you say that again?
So if a learner's email exists in the system under another employer, it currently kicks back as a potential duplicate in the current system. So with this upgrade, will that still happen?
I don't believe it will. It'll recognize that you've entered that person as associated with your organization. You'll be able to only see training requests that your organization has submitted for that individual. So that person's privacy and anything they've taken that's not associated with your organization is not visible to you, even though you will be able to see the trainings that you have submitted funding and receive funding for them.
Great. And we have one more in chat, and then we'll go to the questions that you see here on the screen. Kevin says that the PDF registration form that is printed and then distributed to class participants currently does not have the veteran response. Will that be updated?
We can take a look at it, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. And then questions that were asked or submitted prior to this information session. Will it be possible to get reporting that enables us to reconcile funds received to a specific training?
So yes, we can do that. It's not available through the portal for you to be able to pull directly. So reach out to your workforce development coordinator. They'll probably pull myself in or somebody else, and we can figure out what kind of information it is you need, and be able to give you a list of trainings, what are the status of those trainings, whether they've moved all the way through the closeout approval process and gone for payment. And if there's a missing payment, then we can go back and to our finance office and figure out whether that actually did get issued for you.
Great.
So,
And can one person have administrative access to multiple accounts, compact member accounts?
yeah, this is not incredibly unique. I mean, there are individuals who manage accounts for multiple organizations, but it must be separate email addresses because we can only associate an email. You can only be an org admin for one organization. So yes, they're able to do that, but they will need to have separate email addresses for that. Some individuals, some organizations have chosen to just create separate email addresses specifically for that purpose. If you're running into that situation, reach out to your workforce development coordinator if you need some help strategizing around that. We can definitely help you with that. It's something that we've done before with our businesses.
I think we've covered this one, but will there be a way to edit students' information if it changes?
Yes, and I think that's one of the pieces I think we're really excited for is it's been a barrier for some of our organizations making getting that and having visibility to that. So this upgrade does allow you to do that through that participants screen, and you'll be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, same with demographic information. Will they need to enter that at the time of application?
The minimum requirements are just those things: first, last, job title, email, and date of birth. Beyond that, any other information you can add is great, but if you don't have the full set, you don't have to have it, but we just need those five minimum fields in order to recognize the person and approve funding for them. So.
Right. In addition to compact funding, what other funding options are available for Maine's community college classes?
Yeah, so the other part, that the other piece we have available is scholarships to Maine community college campuses, and it can be used at any campus. It doesn't just have to be your local campus. Your employees are eligible for two scholarships for 50% off two MCCS classes per semester. So they're able to apply right through that profile, that portal. There is a scholarship link at the very top. If I pull it up, there's a scholarship application link, and they're able to get two classes per semester as long as they're under 11 credits, a Maine resident, high school graduate. I don't know if I'm missing any of the other requirements for that.
Working at least
Uh,
part-time.
and working at least part-time. So if they're one of your folks, they are able to do that. And the compact member employees do receive priority for those scholarships. So what we do is we make those available to our compact member employees first. So when they're doing that scholarship application, it's important that they put in their employer. And then so we approve all of those first. And if there's any remaining, then we look at other individuals who've applied for scholarships. So.
And Kevin had asked, will we still be able to see prior funding requests? And we have identified that we will. There's another question here too. If a staff member is currently attending an EMT advanced class, but started the class before they could get a funding request in, is there any way to look at that?
reach out to your workforce development coordinator. Depending on the circumstances, we may be able to help out. I do see the question around scholarship means free attendance or discount. It's a 50% off. It's 212 each, so half the cost of a 3 credit class. So, yeah. And it can't be used in conjunction with the compact member funding. So you couldn't use scholarship for half and then compact member funding for the other half. It's either or on that particular class. So.
And Michelle Hawley from our team messaged in chat as well. Scholarship applications, the employee should apply for it themselves because it will be through their account.
Yes. Yes. It actually has to be them. There's not a mechanism for employees to apply, or employers to apply on their behalf. The other piece that I realized I failed to mention is if there is a question on either an application or a closeout and it does get sent back to you, you need to turn those around as quickly as possible. You have a 5-day window to do that. So we really need to make sure that allows you to be able to get that approved. And that's why it's really important to also apply as soon as possible. So that allows us to correct any errors before. Does a scholarship amount count towards the 1,200 annual? It does not. That's a great question. It doesn't contribute to the $1,200. So you could receive the $1,200 plus two scholarships per semester. So it's a real opportunity for your employees to not only get training through third-party vendors, but also work on their associate's degree or pick up other necessary classes through the Maine community college system. Yeah.
And just a note here too, our colleges do a lot of customized training as well. So there's also a tab within Upskill Maine for MQC and Put Me to Work, so PMTW. So if you are looking for additional funding, take a look at that. That is another avenue of funding that we don't talk about a lot, but it does not impact compact member funding either. Any other questions? And I'll put it to our team that's on the call as well. Are there any points that stuck out to you in training that you would like to mention?
Hi, Heather, it's Charlie here. I'll come back. I'll come off my video. Thank you, everybody, for being here. One of the key tenets of this program, and many of you may, if not all of you, understand, this is a match program when we're talking about the stage 2 funding or the 1,200, as well as the scholarship, as we just mentioned. So for some of you that may be new or jumping on this, to understand more about the program, so if you have a limit of $1,200 per employee and they use that limit in a year, that's saying that you've at least matched another 1,200. So that's $2,400 worth of training funding that's available to you. Thank you, Heather. When I say available, available to the employee based on the match.
Great. We did have one more question. Are employers able to be notified if an employee is approved for a compact scholarship?
At the moment, we don't notify employers of that. So the learner is notified directly, and that's between the learner and the campus that we inform the campus that they've received the scholarship as well. Yep.
Are employers able to be notified when compact funds are sent the Maine community colleges to reduce the bill for a student?
We do. I mean, we inform the campuses and our campuses have visibility to the funding approval for their campuses. It does become somewhat of a challenge. If you can apply for compact member funding before you go register for that program, That allows the campus to recognize that funding's already been approved for it. Otherwise, I know some of our campuses have requested full payment upfront, and then you end up into a reimbursement situation. So if you can get the compact member funding before registering, that's probably ideal because then you're able to actually provide that to them, or they can check our system and see, or we can provide that information to them that they're able to get that ahead of time and know that the funding has already been approved for half the cost of that course. So,
Right. Can you speak to internal trainings and what expenses can be written into that request? What cannot be written into that request?
yeah, I think I can give you a quick, but I think in our FAQ we can provide a little bit more detail for that. Real short is it's really the trainer's time to deliver that program and some reasonable prep time, materials. We're not able to cover the cost for any training of things like food or transportation, and if somebody's going to a conference, so flights or hotels, we're not able to look at any of those expenses. So really, it's that trainer's time is really the main part of it is what we're looking for in those costs expenditures. That is something that sometimes we will send back a funding request asking for a little bit more detail on internal trainings when we just don't see the costs and how those work out. We just want a little bit more detail. So.
Right. And is a compact member able to proactively upload all of their participants who may enroll in trainings down the line without specifically tying it to a funding request?
We don't have that ability at the moment. So that is not, if you, once you upload them into the system, pardon me, they become part of that and they're created accounts. But really, they should be entered as they are being approved for funding requests. So.
Right. And should compact members be checking or tracking employees' available funding before they register them for a class?
It's helpful because you may into a situation where their funding award is reduced. That will be available on that participant screen. Is there available funding? So you'll be able to look up each individual and see how much they have already been allocated for the year, and so be able to do that. So uh, we do that as part of the approval process. So if you have a lot of participants, so on the participant screen. If you go to the participants and you see all of the participants associated with it, it's not here now, but it will be added by Go Live as one of the pieces that we're still waiting on a correction that it will show how much we're going to be reducing some of these fields. So it's not overwhelming with the amount of information, but you'd be able to see what their allocation is for that year. So. Yeah. And then again, they have that search function, so you don't just have to scroll down through all of your employees and go through the multiple pages if you have a lot of employees in your organization.
Any other questions? I will make sure to include this in the email that goes out later this afternoon, but as always, your workforce development coordinators are here to help and answer any questions, whether you're want to go through the process or you get stuck in the application or any questions thereafter. But I will drop the link for their contacts in chat. And again, it will certainly be in the email if you are not accustomed with your local coordinator thus far. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. We will stick around for a little bit if there are any other questions, but I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much for your time and for being such a valued partner. And we will certainly continue to look at this technology and make it as easy and convenient for our end users as we possibly can. Thank you.